Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about reinforcement, right? RBT training. So really quickly, what is reinforcement? And reinforcement is a process in which a stimulus follows a response and the response is more likely to occur in the future. I would like to clarify that, here it's the whole aspect of probable is also really important to emphasize because we're not certain that something's going to occur in the future, but there's a higher probability that if there's a positive outcome or positively, there's some positive experience, there's more likelihood to have this particular response in the future in similar circumstances. Okay. So, reinforcement is a process and reinforcer is a consequence stimulus in the process. So it is part of the consequence contingency. When we talk about the ABCs, that aspect of reinforcement is going to come up. So I'm going to draw it out for you. So we have ABC. You guys remember that? So ABC, and reinforcement is going to be here. So currently we're talking about consequences, and reinforcement is one of the main forms of consequences. Okay. So the last bullet point here talks about the reinforcement is the process in which a behavior is followed by a reinforcer. And we're going to talk about how reinforcer is not clear, it's not known until you're able to see through data and also, an increase in that particular behavior in the future. Difference between reward and reinforcer, and this is a very common, thing people say, oh, we're going to reward that behavior. And reward is usually predetermined and may or may not increase future occurrence of a behavior. So, what people may assume to be quote unquote a reward or reinforcer is not, it's something that basically we do not know yet. But nonetheless, people, when they talk about reward, is something that's been already established, right? So when you talk about, oh, the team, the basketball team is going to be competing for a championship or for a trophy, we're assuming here that the reward is going to be that trophy, right? But we're not sure for certain if that, trophy is going to be sufficiently strong enough of a reinforcer for that team to continue, or the specific players to continue in that sport. On the other hand, a reinforcer is defined by its effect on the behavior. So once again, what kind of effect does it have on behavior? So technically, you cannot call a stimulus a reinforcer if you have not seen the effects or increases in this case on the behavior, right? If you don't see an increase in behavior, then that's truly not a reinforcer. Types of reinforcement. There are two types of reinforcement in behavior analysis. We talk about positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Let's see positive reinforcement. So there are two words here, positive and reinforcement. And positive means a stimulus is added. You add something after the response occurs. Okay, so we're going to see some examples right now. So just kind of remember that positive means addition or adding something. Reinforcement means the stimulus follow the response has an increasing or strengthening effect on it. So basically here we're going to the principles of behavior analysis, which one of them is reinforcement. The fact that, here you're going to strengthen and increase the behavior in the future. And further, positive reinforcement is a process in which a stimulus is added as a consequence to a behavior that results in the behavior more likely to occur again in the future in similar circumstances. Okay. Here's an example. So example one. So Willie is a behavior. So he's a person that's going to be engaged in a behavior. Willie tells a joke. Samuel turns around and says, "You're funny." In the future, Willie's more likely to tell jokes or tells a joke when Samuel is around. Okay, very, very, very straightforward, right? So in this situation, we have, Willie engaging in his response. And, for him, Sam was able to reinforce that response by giving him that, really great comment there. Here's the next one. Oh, actually, here's the breakdown. So in response here, when we talk about the contingency, is that Willie tells a joke. That's the behavior. The consequences that Samuel saying "you are funny" is added to Willie's environment following his joke. So the effects of the consequence is that Willie is more likely to tell jokes in the future when Samuel is around. Example 2. So Willie's a behavior. Willie tells a joke. Samuel turns around and says, "Your joke is not funny. Please go away." In the future, Willie tells more jokes when Samuel is around. What do you guys think? Do you think that's going to happen? So in the future, is he going to tell more jokes when Samuel is around? Probably not, right? And conclusion here is that once again, positive is that, if you're adding something to it, reinforcement is more likely to occur. And Just because you think something may be a reinforcer, you cannot be sure until you see an increase in the behavior in the future. And going back to this example here, if Samuel turns around and says these things or says these particular comments, I'm pretty sure that Willie's not going to engage in that response again when Samuel is around. Okay? So once again, positives adding, reinforcements, behaviors more likely to occur in the future. Now let's talk about negative reinforcement. And please do not stress out, about this information. This is, a lot of, people that have been in the field sometimes get confused about this. So do not feel stressed out. Just kind of as much as possible, just, try to calmly understand and hear this information out. There are two words here. So negative and reinforcement. Negative means the stimulus is removed. Okay, so anytime you see negative, something's taken away or removed. Reinforcement is the same thing. It means that you're increasing or strengthening the effect on, some type of behavior. And negative reinforcement is a process in which a stimulus is removed as a consequence to a behavior that results in the behavior more likely to occur again in the future. Okay. So for negative reinforcement to happen, an unpleasant or aversive condition must be present before the response occurs. And this is very common in our day-to-day, lives or routines. We experience things that are unpleasant and aversive, and what do? Well, we try to get away from it, try to avoid it, or you know what I mean. So this is a condition, a situation the person does not like and wanted to stop. Now, antecedent condition is called aversive stimulus, and here's the breakdown. So you come in contact with that unpleasant situation, call it, for instance, someone that you have not had a really pleasant experience with in the past. So you see him walking, right? We can start that, as that first, unpleasant situation. What do? Well, you go around, the corner to try to avoid, and that's going to be your behavioral response. And, for a consequence, the unpleasant situation, in this case, coming in contact, you need to engage with that person, is removed, right? So in that situation, you're able to totally avoid coming in contact with that person. In that situation, here we see the effects of negative reinforcement. Here's some more examples. So you have a headache, you take medicine, and your headache goes away or lessens, right? So here the effects, the aversive condition was a headache. And always remember that in their antecedent for negative reinforcement, you're going to have some type of aversive stimulus or some type of aversive condition that you're going to try to remove. The one below, child screams, mom says stop, and the scream stops. Okay, so in that situation, you have the aversive condition that the child is screaming. You hear the sound from a car from not putting seatbelt on. So you hear that, that sound that, you hear when you get in your car. You put on your seatbelt and the sound stops. Okay. You get a mosquito bite, and it's itching. You scratch your bite and the itching reduces. So all of these right here were examples of negative reinforcement, basically removing. In our field, when you're working with children with autism, and in general, with any client that you're going to be working with, you're going to see examples or situations where the client tries to escape and avoid certain scenarios or situations that you may present to them that are not pleasant. And, the team is going to give you guys a behavior plan that's going to let you know what to do in these situations. But for sure, at least you now know that that is called negative reinforcement. Okay. Just a quick summary of this. So negative means removing, reinforcement means more likely to occur in the future, and put it all together, for negative reinforcement to happen, an unpleasant or aversive condition must be present before the response occurs. Okay, we have to have that unpleasant or aversive condition for this to be considered negative reinforcement. Okay, I'm going to skip this right here. So next we're going to have the knowledge checks, and good luck with that, and I hope to see you guys again.